I want you to picture something with me. You go to the garden center on a Saturday morning, the sun is out, the place smells incredible, and there's this one plant, gorgeous, lush, healthy, sitting right there with a little tag that says low maintenance, spreads beautifully, returns every year. And you think, perfect, that's exactly what I need. So you buy it, you plant it, you water it, you actually feel proud of yourself. And then 2 years later, you're on your hands and knees in the dirt, sweating, cursing quietly, wondering why on earth that same plant has eaten your flower bed, crawled under your fence, started showing up in your lawn, and is now threatening your neighbor's yard. And here's the worst part. You find out that some of these plants don't just spread. Some of them kill your trees, some of them damage your home, some of them are linked to Lyme disease, and some of them are quietly poisoning your pets. I've been gardening long enough to make every mistake in this video, and I'm sharing all 9 of them today so you don't have to. Stay until the end because plant number 7 is the one that genuinely alarmed me, and most people have it sitting right in their front yard and have no idea. Plant 1. English ivy. Let's start with the one that fools absolutely everyone. English ivy. It looks stunning. Dark green, evergreen through winter, fills in shady spots where nothing else will grow. Garden centers love it. Landscapers recommend it constantly, and for the first season it's well behaved. You feel like you made a genius choice, then it starts climbing, and once it starts climbing, it does not stop. Here's what the little tag at the garden center will never tell you. English ivy doesn't just grow up your fence or your wall for decoration. Its roots, called adventitious roots, actually push their way into the mortar between bricks, into the gaps in siding, into the cracks in your chimney. And once those roots find a gap, they widen it. Slowly over time, they work their way deeper. Homeowners have pulled ivy off their walls and discovered that it had worked itself through the mortar so completely, the mortar came with it. That's a structural repair bill, not a gardening problem. And then there are the trees. English ivy climbing a mature tree will eventually kill it. Not quickly, slowly. It smothers the bark, shades out the canopy, and adds so much weight to the branches that during a storm, the risk of a tree coming down dramatically increases. I watched a neighbor lose a beautiful oak tree to ivy that had been growing on it for years. She had no idea it was slowly suffocating the tree from the inside out. And getting rid of it, it's a multi-year war. You cut it down and it comes back. You pull it up and the roots stay. A Virginia Tech horticulture professor literally said there is no magic bullet. You just pull it out and keep pulling. If you want ground cover for shade, grow native pachysandra or wild ginger instead. Beautiful, controlled, and they will not eat your house. Plant 2. Bishop's weed. I want to tell you something that is going to save your garden more than anything else in this video. If anyone, a neighbor, a friend, a sweet lady at a plant swap, offers you a clump of bishop's weed for free, you run. You smile politely, you thank them, and then you run. Bishop's weed, also called goutweed, is the plant that has actually spawned a support group on Facebook. I am not making that up. There are real gardeners sitting at their computers sharing their grief with strangers because of this plant. It looks harmless. Variegated green and white leaves, pretty little white flowers, fills in shady spots easily. It was sold for decades as the perfect ground cover. What it actually is a rhizome network that operates like an underground army. It spreads in every direction simultaneously. It comes up through your perennials, it comes up through your mulch, it crosses into your lawn. And here is the detail that will keep you up at night. If you try to dig it out and leave even a tiny fragment of root in the soil, that fragment will grow a whole new plant. You cannot dig your way out of bishop's weed. The only method that consistently works is to cover the entire infected area with thick black plastic or layers of cardboard for a full year of sunlight deprivation. And even then, it sometimes survives. Gardeners have described losing entire rose gardens to bishop's weed that they couldn't see spreading underground until it was too late. And the darker irony, this plant is still being sold at garden centers across the United States right now. If you want a low-maintenance shady ground cover, plant native golden Alexander instead. It's gorgeous, it's controlled, and it will not ruin your life. Plant 3. Lily of the Valley. Wait, before you scroll away, I know what you're thinking. Lily of the Valley? But it's so delicate and beautiful and romantic. I know, I thought the same thing. That's exactly how it gets you. Here's the thing about Lily of the Valley that most gardeners don't find out until it's already too late. It spreads underground through rhizomes the same way bishop's weed does, filling in shady patches quietly and persistently until you have a dense colony that has crowded out everything else around it. It's listed as invasive in Wisconsin and Arkansas, and in the right conditions it takes over fast. But that's not even the part I need you to hear. Lily of the Valley is one of the most toxic plants you can put in a family garden. Every single part of it, the leaves, the flowers, the roots, and those bright little red berries that show up in late summer and look absolutely like candy to a small child, every part contains cardiac glycosides that cause what doctors describe as digitalis-like toxicity. That means heart rhythm disruption, slow and irregular heartbeat, high blood pressure, nausea, and in severe cases, seizures and cardiac arrest. And for pets, it's even more dangerous. Lethal poisoning from Lily of the Valley has been documented in dogs. For cats, ingestion can cause dangerous heart rhythm changes, low blood pressure, seizures, and coma. The water in a vase holding cut stems has enough toxin to cause illness. One gardener wrote that she removed hers the year her niece started visiting regularly. That sentence stopped me cold. If you love that woodland, delicate look, grow Solomon's seal or native wild ginger instead. They give you the same shaded elegance with none of the emergency vet visits. Real quick, if any of these 3 are already in your yard, drop it in the comments right now. You are genuinely not alone, and I want to see it. We're going to keep going because it gets even more interesting from here. Plant 4. Mint. Now I can already hear some of you saying, mint? Seriously? But hear me out, because this is the plant that tricks gardeners who think they know better. Most people know mint spreads. What most people do not fully grasp is how aggressively and intelligently it spreads. Mint sends out underground runners in every direction simultaneously, and those runners find the path of least resistance, which in a garden is exactly the beautifully loose, fertile, well-watered soil you work so hard to create. The better gardener you are, the faster the mint spreads. It crosses bed borders, it comes up through walkway cracks, it appears in the lawn, it shows up in other containers. And it does all of this while still looking perfectly attractive and smelling wonderful. I planted spearmint once near my tomatoes because I read it was a good companion plant for repelling pests. By the end of that summer, the spearmint had outcompeted the tomatoes and was working its way under the raised bed frame. I spent the next 2 full seasons dealing with the aftermath. The rule with mint is simple. If it goes in open ground, it owns that ground. The only safe way to grow it is in a buried pot. Sink a container into the soil with the rim above the surface so runners can't escape. But in an open bed, mint is not a companion plant. It is a takeover. Plant 5. Chinese wisteria. This one breaks my heart a little. Because of all the plants on this list, wisteria is genuinely one of the most beautiful things you can put in a garden. Those cascading purple flower clusters, that fragrance in late spring, it's breathtaking. I understand completely why people plant it. I understand why I planted it. What I did not understand is that Chinese wisteria can grow up to 70 feet long with trunk diameters reaching 15 inches. 15 inches. That is not a vine. That is a tree pretending to be a vine. In one neighborhood, a single wisteria plant was not only pulling down the arbor in its own yard, it had spread runners through the entire block, with new shoots coming up through the dirt floors of neighboring basements. People who never planted a single wisteria seed were suddenly dealing with it in their foundations. The vine wraps itself around any structure it can find: pergolas, fences, gutters, tree trunks, and it squeezes. Mature trees have been girdled and killed by established wisteria left unchecked for a few seasons, and it lives for 50 years. If you plant Chinese wisteria today, you are making a 50-year decision. Here's the beautiful news, though. American wisteria, Wisteria frutescens, exists. It has nearly identical flowers, the same fragrance, and it is native, controllable, and will not consume your property. That is the one you want. That is the only one you should be buying. Plant 6, obedient plant. The name is a lie. I need everyone to understand that before we go any further. The obedient plant, Physostygia virginiana, is called obedient because if you push one of its individual flowers sideways on the stem, it stays there. That is the only thing about this plant that will ever obey you. The first year you plant it, you're going to love it. Tall, elegant pink flower spikes that bloom late in summer when most of the garden is winding down. Pollinators adore it. It looks incredible at the back of a border, and then year 2 happens. It reseeds in every direction. It sends underground runners into neighboring sections of the bed. It shows up in your lawn. It pops up between pavers. Gardeners who've grown it consistently describe the same experience, delighted in year 1, confused in year 2, and at war with it from year 3 onward. One gardener described pulling it from her garden for 3 consecutive seasons and still not getting ahead of it. If you want that same tall, late-blooming pollinator magnet effect, grow agastache, also called hyssop, instead. It behaves beautifully, the pollinators love it just as much, and you will never write a frustrated comment about it on a gardening forum at 11 o'clock at night. Okay, I want to stop here because plant 7 is the one I need you to really pay attention to. This is the one I wish someone had told me about years ago because it's not just a garden problem, it's actually a health risk. Plant 7. Japanese barberry. Japanese barberry has been a landscaping staple in the United States for decades. You've seen it everywhere. Compact ornamental shrubs with gorgeous red, purple, or burgundy foliage covered in small berries in the fall. Deer-resistant, drought-tolerant, handles shady spots. It checks basically every box a homeowner is looking for. And then researchers started looking more closely at what was happening inside those dense, thorny thickets. Here is what they found. The dense growth of Japanese barberry near the ground traps moisture and blocks wind circulation. That creates a cool, humid microclimate at soil level. And that is precisely the habitat that black-legged ticks need to survive and thrive. Studies have shown that barberry patches host significantly more ticks than nearby areas planted with native shrubs. A University of Connecticut study demonstrated that removing barberry stands from a landscape dramatically reduced the number of Lyme-carrying ticks in that area. And Lyme disease incidence in the United States has been rising steadily for years. The ticks don't stay in the shrub. They hitch rides on deer, on dogs, on children playing outside. The barberry sits there looking beautiful and essentially operates as a tick breeding ground in your front yard. Japanese barberry is now banned or restricted in multiple U.S. states including New York, Pennsylvania, and several others because of both its invasive spread and its connection to tick populations. It is still being sold in states where it isn't yet banned. If you need a compact, deer-resistant, colorful shrub that handles tough spots, grow native inkberry, Ilex glabra, instead. Same size, same resilience, zero tick habitat. Plant 8, purple loosestrife. Purple loosestrife is the plant that makes you feel like an excellent gardener for about 1 full season. It grows tall, it produces the most beautiful lavender flower spikes all summer long. The pollinators visit constantly, and it asks almost nothing from you. Here's the number that changed everything for me. One single purple loosestrife plant can produce up to 2 million seeds per year. 2 million! And those seeds are light. They're carried by wind and water, and they are absolutely viable. This is why purple loosestrife has colonized wetlands, pond edges, and waterways across the northeastern United States with a completeness that has genuinely alarmed ecologists for years. It is listed as invasive in nearly every state in the country. It chokes out native wetland plants that migratory birds, native fish, and countless other species depend on for survival. Once it establishes in a wet area, removing it is an enormous, expensive, ongoing effort. And once it establishes in your garden bed, the root system is vigorous and deep and does not let go easily. The alternative here is one of my favorite swaps on this entire list. Purple blazing star, Liatris spicata, is native produces nearly identical tall purple flower spikes, blooms at roughly the same time, and the pollinators absolutely love it. You get all the beauty with none of the ecological destruction. It's not even a difficult swap, it's just the right choice. We're almost at the end, and I saved the last one for all the people who love a dramatic architectural garden statement. This one's for you. Plant 9. Chinese silvergrass. Ornamental grasses have had a major moment in garden design over the last 20 years, and Chinese silvergrass, Miscanthus sinensis, became the go-to choice for designers and homeowners alike. Tall, feathery plumes in fall, dramatic movement in the wind, looks genuinely stunning as a specimen plant or a privacy screen. Magazine gardens are full of it. The problem is that it self-seeds with remarkable aggression. In the first year, you have one beautiful clump. By year 3, you have that clump plus several new plants scattered around the garden. By year 5, you have offspring appearing in your lawn, in your neighbor's yard, along the fence line, and in nearby open areas. It has been listed as invasive across many eastern states because it escapes into roadsides, fields, and natural areas and forms dense colonies that crowd out native vegetation. There is also a detail about ornamental grasses that most people don't think about until late summer. Dry grass clumps are highly flammable. In drought conditions or in areas where wildfire is a concern, large, dry miscanthus clumps near a home are a genuine risk. The alternative is switchgrass, Panicum virgatum, or little blue stem. Both native North American grasses that give you that same dramatic, moving, beautiful effect in autumn. They feed native birds through winter with their seeds, they support the local ecosystem, and they stay where you put them. Before I let you go, 3 more that deserve a mention. Bamboo, any running variety, because you already know someone with a bamboo horror story and you have seen the look in their eyes. Vinca, also called periwinkle, fills in ground beautifully but smothers every native plant underneath within a few seasons and is nearly impossible to fully remove. And burning bush, gorgeous fall color, one of the best-selling shrubs in America, but it's invasive in at least 24 states because birds spread the seeds into forests constantly. Here's the honest truth. Every single plant in this video is still sitting on shelves at nurseries and big box stores across the United States right now, labeled beautifully, photographed at their best. And nobody is going to warn you. That's what this video is for. If this saved your garden from even one mistake, share it with one person, a neighbor, a gardening friend, someone with a brand new yard and big plans. They need this before they go shopping, not after. And if you already have one of these, tell me which one in the comments. Tell me how bad it got. Tell me how you're fighting it. Tell me if you've won. Because that is where the real conversation happens. And I read every single one. Subscribe if you haven't already. New videos every week, and none of them will send you to the garden center without fair warning first.